Well, that was a wild one. That was a crazy one, and that was most definitely a memorable one. Unfortunately, the Browns did not come out on top against Kansas City, and their season is over. But the key of this game, and I think the through line of this game, is missed opportunities, right? In a game of inches, missed opportunities add up. Even when both teams blew points, the Kansas City Chiefs blew points. They blew 4 points in this game, the extra point and the missed field goal. And unfortunately, the Browns blew 7. And that ended up being a difference. So, some fans are going to look at who to blame and who to throw all of this on. I don't know if there's one single force to blame. I think it's just plain and simple. Browns lost this one to a good team. A good team that, just like the Browns, found a way to adapt when things did not go their way. Just like the Browns adjusted. Just like the Browns had a little bit of luck in their favor. And just like the Browns have all season, Kansas City just found the play that they needed to win this game. So what can we learn from this game? Well, let's talk about it. Real quick before I start this video, I want to make sure I give a shout out to the Dog Check tier Patreon members. And as always, I start with Michael Matique, Greg Ealer, Seth Harrison, Corporal Nick Lopez, Nick Nasty, Mandela Moore, the only Browns fan in Wisconsin, Batman, Jake Phillips, Rush Shear, Barack Kumar, John Alver, Masayua, Budza Roland, Ethan Rindauer, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Justin Cole, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, Timothy McClure, Keith Anderson, Joshua Still, Sean Barron, Gagos Pizzano, Dom Gazzulo, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Dan in West Texas, Billy, Michael Holdenack, Jared Austin, Dylon W, Josh Bendor, Dylan Hell, Andrew Sedejo, David Maldonado, Chad Gimme, Rex Kaufman, Edrin Hall, James McGinley, Brody Cook, Moose Gentry, Patrick F, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, IT Rex, Austin Bolin, Jesus Serrano, Joshua Paulus, Chris Fawns, Pick Down Browns Backers, Mark Kahn, Max Out Dojo, Beerman 069, SSJ Swift, Andrew Hirsch, Feeling Dangerous 113, Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Robert Germain, Cleveland BCI, Anthony O, Bobo Regretti, Stuart Moore, TJ Showman on cue, Mark M, Jalil Salim Sr., Martha Crusnut, Joe Bobby, Sean McGinty, Carlos Moreno, Musty Taco, Frankie B and Matt the Aggie, Mud Duck, Brad Calbo, Keith Gerkak, Lukey from Munich, Deveroff, J Guy 101, Ryan T, Jonathan Fredericks, CK, Eric Green, Joseph Stevens, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for the support on Patreon. I'm going to start this video off by talking about the defense. Well, we talked in the preview about what needed to happen for this Browns team to win this game. They needed to dominate both lines of scrimmages, and I thought they had a good chance to do that. Unfortunately, I don't think they dominated either line of scrimmage, and it starts here with the defensive line. Miles got hurt about like a quarter of the way through, or 3/4 of the way through, my bad. And the defensive line just wasn't good enough today. They had a handful of good plays, but all in all, they allowed that interior run to kill them out the gun, just like it did against the Oakland Raiders. It's definitely something they need to fix. They need to get bigger on the defensive line. Maybe Andrew Billings playing next year will be what they need there, but they need that depth. They need that weight in there in the interior defensive line, because every time we go up against a team that can run out the gun up the middle, they do it and it hurts us. Pittsburgh, who can't even run, can do it on this defensive line. That was a problem. The defensive line also just didn't win enough battles, did not create enough pressure on its own when they decided to drop back. Sure, there were moments that they did it, but did not show up consistently enough or well enough to say that they won that battle on the defensive side of the ball. So that was a major issue. And once you could not get that with your defensive line, you ran into all kinds of other issues on the defense. When you look at the secondary, and look, people are going to be upset at the secondary because people are always upset at the secondary whenever a team gives up a ton of points. I'm here to tell you the secondary held up about as well against the Kansas City Chiefs as you could have expected if they weren't getting pass rush, right? Like, honestly, if you would have told me that Miles would have only had 1 sack and this defensive line, I think, only had 1 sack the entire game, and the point total was what it was, I would have been shocked. I really would have, because I felt like they needed to have constant pressure to be able to shut down what the Chiefs do, because the Chiefs have way more weapons than the Browns have people available to defend them. And it showed itself when they have enough time to drop back there. Then who knows who's going to be on Travis Kelce? Who knows what the situation is one-on-one with Denzel Ward and Tyreek Hill? Who knows what McCole Perriman is doing over there with Terrence Mitchell? Let alone they get a safety held up on Travis Kelce. And you know what? To their credit, the safeties held up today. They did not give up any big plays. The secondary, I feel like, held up as well as you could have asked. Obviously, they did not shut down the Chiefs, but this is not a secondary that anybody in their right mind thought was going to shut down the Kansas City Chiefs. They held as much as you could have held. The defensive line just could not get pressure, could not force these passes, could not force the hand of Patrick Mahomes. And even when they did, they were over aggressive to a point to where they were sliding so far out of where they're supposed to be that they're creating holes and lanes for the quarterbacks to run through, which ended up biting you in the butt at the end of the game. Like, you can blame Joe Woods for some of this stuff, and sure, some of this is Joe Woods' fault, but this wasn't like the New York game where it was miscommunication and misalignment, and it was obvious that the coaching was an issue. This was just your defensive line could not win their battle, and this is the consequence of your defensive line not winning your battle. And even then, the secondary still made some plays that helped you stay in this game. Baker throws that interception. At that point, I was thinking the game was over. Kansas City's going to kick a field goal here. This is going to be out of reach. There's no way the Browns can come back from that. Well, the defense holds up. They force a field goal. Lo and behold, Harrison Butker misses the field goal. Browns still have a chance in this game. They go right down the field and score. All of a sudden, it was a 5-point game. Now you need another stop from your defense, right? They get the stop. They get the interception in the end zone. You get the ball at the 20. Unfortunately, the offense did not convert. We know what the last drive was, and let's talk about the last two plays of the last drive, because this is where I've heard all the criticism about, oh, Joe Woods messed that up. Joe Woods did not mess that up. That was not a Joe. And look, I'm no Joe Woods defender. I've been on here very critical of Joe Woods, but I'm not going to put blame on somebody just because it's popular to put blame on that person or allow that misinformation to throw away. What happened on 3rd and 15 was they went with the 4 vertical play. They always go 4 on 3rd and long. They went 4 vertical. When you go 4 vertical, that means literally every single weapon they have is going deep. And the Browns, to cover that, they sent all of the people in their secondary back deep in just a 4-man rush. When the Browns did the 4-man rush, they did not get there in time. They did not get any pressure. And what that allowed to happen was the pocket to collapse in the right way for a lane to be wide open. Adrian Claiborne got beat by Eric Fisher. Larry Ogunjobi could not free up from his man to go and make that tackle. Nobody was able to get an angle. And by the grace of everything, MJ Stewart was somehow in position to stop the first down from happening. So he actually made a play just to get there. You know, that's just the logistics of football at a time, right? When 4 verts happens and your line cannot maintain that pressure, that's going to happen every time. That's just on execution. That's not on the play call by Joe Woods. I don't understand where people think all of a sudden with hindsight available to them, right, that on 3rd and 15, the Browns are going to run a spy on Chad Henne. No, that's obviously not. And if you would have ran the spy on Chad Henne, he would have just got the first down by Travis Kelce and threw over your spy. So there was no way that was going to happen. It's on the defensive line to execute better, get more pressure, and that's been the story of the entire game on defense, right? Defensive line could not get that pressure consistently, and that is what bit them in the butt at the end of this game. Then you can go on the 4th down play call. I can't even be mad at that. I can't even be mad that they converted that, because, you know, it took a lot of guts to call that. And there was no way I thought they were going to call that play. They called it. It works because nobody's expecting it. And how could I expect anybody to expect something that nobody would do in that situation, right? You're talking about if you don't convert, if one thing goes wrong in that situation with your backup quarterback, you're giving Baker Mayfield the ball at the 40 with a minute left and down, and you'll be up only by 5. Like, there's no way you actually think he's going to do that, but he did it. That's why it was successful. You can't be mad. You have to tip your hat. Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy coached one hell of a game. Not that Joe Woods did not coach a good game. He did coach a good game, but they coached a great game, an amazing game. Give those two the credit that they deserve. I'm tired of hearing everybody throw it on Joe Woods. It's not all on Joe Woods. Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, they just coached one hell of a game, and that's why they are former Super Bowl champions. Browns need to step their level up. They need to get to that point. Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they've all been together for like 3 years. So maybe next year when the Browns have a full offseason, they can catch up to that and do stuff like that. But hey, coaching matters, and just because you get out-coached does not mean you're a bad coach when the guy on the other side's Andy Reid. So that's what I have to say about the defense. Look, everybody's going to trash the defense. Everybody's going to get mad at the defense. Defense did everything that they could in the secondary. The defensive line just did not create the pressure they needed to. And I think they know that. If they would have been able to create just a little bit more pressure in some key moments, a lot of these things wouldn't have happened. The Browns could have won this game, but they couldn't get the pressure. And they need to address that in the offseason. All right, so for the offensive side of the ball, man, this was like watching a cowboy on his last stand, right? You got Baker Mayfield out there. First play, Jedrick Wills rolls his calf, out for the game. All right. Who's in there? Kendall Lamb. We like Kendall Lamb. Kendall Lamb can fill in. You're a little nervous, right? Because Kendall Lamb's the only backup tackle on the roster, and Jack Conklin got injured last week, so you don't know if he's 100% at all. So, you're looking at that situation. You're kind of worried. Kendall Lamb stays in there, and then Baker throws an interception. On this interception, it was a bad one. He threw across his body. He was trying to make a play. It ended up not mattering because, again, the Browns defense got the stop, and then Harrison Butker missed the field goal. It only took like 40 seconds off the clock. So it ended up not mattering as much. And then Kendall Lamb goes down. And this is something I've not heard talked about enough. Blake Hance, the backup left guard from last week, the dude who joined the team like 6 days ago, the guy who introduced himself to Baker Mayfield, the dude who was on the Jets when the Jets beat the Browns like 3 weeks ago, on their practice squad, by the way, is now the left tackle in a divisional round against the Kansas City Chiefs. And to give him his credit, it held up for about 2 quarters, right? It held up for quite a while. But at the end of the game, it just didn't, right? Chris Jones reared his head in that drive where the Browns got after the turnover. Chris Jones reared his head, blew up a play. On another play, Blake Hance gets beat, and the patchwork of that offensive line that the Browns have been holding together so strong for the last few weeks, it just started to come apart because it was too much on too little. I would think if Jedrick was in there, maybe you get some better protection. Maybe you move the ball more efficiently. What ifs are always going to run through your head in these kind of games. But the offensive line was just too much to overcome. I know people want to run the ball more, but I have to see if Blake Hance was affecting their ability to run the ball, right? It might have made them more predictable than they want it to be because they could only run the ball to one side. Because who knows if Blake Hance knows the left tackle plays? I don't know how important the left tackles are, but I would imagine that you have to know the plays. And a lot of these design runs, it's not just plug and play. It's not just power. These are zone block schemes. It's not just walk out there and play football. So it affected everything. Once you were down to Blake Hance as your backup tackle, it affected everything. It changed how the game had to be called. It meant more shotgun passes. It meant that the Browns could not rely on their strength, which was the offensive line. It absolutely changed the game for the Cleveland Browns, and nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about every other injury in this game. That injury right there to Kendall Lamb and Jedrick Wills, that's massive. And that absolutely changed the game. Now, Baker Mayfield, given all that considered, I felt like he played a good game. Made some excellent throws down the stretch. Almost made one hell of a play on that last drive. But unfortunately, Chris Jones got pressure, affected the play, wasn't able to make it, had to throw a screen to Kareem Hunt. It is what it is. It's upsetting. But, you know, hopefully next year, if you get to this point, you're not as stripped down on your offensive line, or the injury bug doesn't hit you quite like it did this week. The Browns also at wide receiver, they do need more man beaters. And I'm not just saying this because it's the Chiefs. I'm saying this because it pops his head. Against Baltimore, week 14, it was obvious. And today it was obvious. The Browns need people who can beat more man. Jarvis and Richard are really good at slicing up zones. They're not necessarily as skilled at beating man. They need a deep threat. That's why Odell is important to this offense. So I know a lot of you guys are going to ask me about trading Odell in the offseason. Unless you have an answer for what you can do for a deep threat, and it's somebody who can prove that they can do it and get snaps in the NFL, then we don't have a replacement for Odell. This offense needs that against the elite teams. I said when the injury happened, I did not think it would affect the Browns' ability to get to the playoffs, but I did think it would affect the Browns' ability to win once they get to the playoffs. That ended up being somewhat true. But all in all, with this game, especially offensively, yes, there were some misses when it comes to play calling. Yes, there were some things you wish they would have done. Yes, you would have wished they would have ran the ball like they used to. But you have to understand, they just did not have a left tackle out there. They had a backup practice squad guard for the New York Jets as their left tackle. And that has to affect the play calling. It has to affect the amount that you can run. It has to affect the effectiveness of the run that wasn't too effective in the first half of this game. The Browns, who have had a lot of good fortune this year, who have had things just work out for them, it finally added up to just too much to overcome. And the Chiefs ended up being the team that overcame the bad fortune there. So hats off to them. They played a hell of a game. The Browns played a good game. It just wasn't good enough this week. Let's talk about the bigger picture. All right, so the game was disappointing. The loss was disappointing, but I do want people to keep their perspective, and I don't think this is going to be a problem in Cleveland. Before this season started, I think the absolute best, most quote-unquote realistic take from somebody was the take that I had, right? The 11-5 to 12-4 team that could win a playoff game. I felt like that's what this team could accomplish this year, and that's what they should accomplish, and anything else would have been a disappointment. Well, they did it. And they came this close to getting to the AFC Championship. And if they would have got to the AFC Championship, they would have been ahead of schedule. Right now, they're on schedule, and that's a beautiful thing. You have a franchise quarterback. You have a franchise coach. You have a good GM. You have all of these things in place. You got rid of some big streaks that have been looming over this team for years. You got the hard stuff done this season. You got the ugly stuff done this season. Next season, that's where you add the paint. That's where you add the finish, and that's where things start to get sexy. So as disappointed as I am to see this season end, I am more excited to see what next season holds, because this is not just Browns fan being optimistic, wait till next year. No. This is legitimately, wow, I can't believe this team accomplished this year, injured, going through so much during the season. The global situation was what it was, especially at the end of this season. All of those things went against the Browns. Next season, they get a clean slate. They get a full offseason. They get to add some pieces. They get to fix some holes, and they get to get healthier, right? This team hasn't been healthy all year. The mantra all year has been raise the bar. And congratulations to the Cleveland Browns. Now that bar has risen. Next year, we're not going to be happy with the divisional playoff round loss. Next year, we're not going to be happy with just making the playoffs or winning 10-plus games. Next year is going to come with real expectations, championship game expectations, Super Bowl type expectations. We think this team could be really good next year, and that's awesome. And that's super exciting. It's a little scary. And boy, am I looking forward to it. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.